Ladies and gentlemen, some days you just look at the news and just think, yes, these people are retarded. And we do always say retardanistan is a global phenomenon. So let's actually have a look at what is basically retarded. Well, it's actually the SACP's Fifth Annual Conference. So let's actually go through some of the bull rubbish that's been said. First is that according to Solly, apparently the ANC and the SACP are not really getting along because apparently the ANC failed to reconfigure the alliance to make sure that the parties were basically equal. The problem is, Solly, you're not equal because you see the ANC actually gets votes and you don't. You see, you supposedly campaign for the ANC, but you don't actually campaign for yourself. So if you want an equal alliance, leave the ANC and go and campaign on your own and then get no votes and then get no seats in government, because no one cares who the SACP is. So at the end of the day, apparently, he was very upset because you see, none of the senior SACP members are currently in government, and a lot of the, senior positions are being given over to the GNU parties. And that means that they can't push forward the National Democratic Revolution to usher in a socialist utopia for South Africa, which none of us voted for. That's literally not on any of the ballot boxes. But hey, that's just my view on that. So what other rubbish have they been talking about? Well, moron, Aaron has come out and basically said that what they actually need, so they need, NHI. Yeah, we heard this one before. And according to him, he went to the communists and said, you see, the reason we need the NHI is because that way we actually get like equality in the healthcare. But you see, this guy thinks we're stupid because he actually says, a lot of the detractors of the NHI have never read the legislation, so they don't actually know what they're upset about. Mate, we've read the legislation just fine. We understand the problems just fine. And the reality is we don't want your greedy pits on the NHI. So let us explain. You see, there's two fundamental clauses in the NHI Bill that are really, really problematic. The first is around the central fund, the idea that the government will be the sole procurer of NHR or health type facilities. And in doing that, they'll be the ones that will basically pay for everything. So their initial argument as to why they should have this centralized fund is because there would be, the rules of large numbers, the fact that you could negotiate discounts with suppliers. But you see, we all know that that's not what's going to happen, do we? We all know that what's going to happen is they're going to get the funds and then they're going to go, well, previously disadvantaged, let's have BE. You can't procure from the fund without BE. Okay, well, there goes half the medical industry. Then they're going to say, well, you can't be a GP because you don't have BEE. Ergo, you can't actually get funds to get paid to be a GP because it needs to be a, equity deal. Yeah, we can all see that happening. And then we can also see it happening going, oh, actually, now we need to favor all the 100% BE partners, even though they're 5 times more expensive. But, it's helping transformation and the reformation of the healthcare industry. And we've all heard this rubbish before. He thinks we're stupid. He thinks that somehow we don't understand what's going on, but we do. And so inevitably, what will end up happening was that the NHR's fund, which is supposed to allow us to procure health care facilities or services or drugs or whatever else it might be at a discount because of bulk buying, it's not going to happen. People are going to use it to enrich themselves, pay over the odds, and we're going to bankrupt the funds. And then when we bankrupted the funds and everybody's left the country because they know they're not going to get paid, and you've actually legislated them through licensing criteria out of the industry through BE bull rubbish, then we're going to go, oh, look, everybody's dying because they can't get health facilities. And then what are we going to do? You see, the idiot then goes on further to say, well, it's about equitable distribution of health. It's a human right. Mate, there is no human right to health. There hasn't been for freaking ever. No one has a right to health. Everybody has a right to be able to attempt to afford health. And I understand some people can't do that. But then what you need to do is get them a job and upward mobility and so forth and so forth. You are denying them that ability to afford healthcare because you have destroyed their economic prospects. We are not dumb to this. He then goes on to say, let us use the example of, the Eastern Cape, the province with the worst medical history in South Africa. Because guess what? All the healthcare facilities get looted. Right. So he says, in those provinces, there is a case where there was a shortage of syringes and needles. And then he goes on to say the NHR fund would fix this. But then goes on to say that actually what went wrong was procurement. Dude, we're not stupid. You can have all the funds in the world. If your procurement process is just wrong, it wasn't a situation where you couldn't afford it or you didn't have the money. You were crooking the procurement, because this is the problem. These individuals are not having problems because they don't have money. The procurement process doesn't work because what you've done is you've attempted to apply loads of different kickbacks and forms of corruption and so forth and so forth. That is not going to change under the NHI. And to say that clearly none of us know what's going on, we just didn't read the legislation, treats us like idiots. We're not stupid. We know what the pitfalls are. The next problem that NHR has is basically the privatization or the expropriation without compensation of the medical industry, because you're effectively going to go to everybody's medical savings in their medical aids, and you're basically going to attempt to make them redundant. And you're going to say, well, now all of the funds need to centralize in the government's greedy little hands. But the problem is, what happens when that fund, the government fund, goes bust? Well, no one has an alternative vehicle to market. No one else has any option but to use the system that you have mandated them to use, which they all know you are going to destroy. So what will happen is you will give them a mandated service, destroy it, and then there's no alternative, apart from them to have really bad services. And that's why people are angry, because they don't want that. And yes, you're going to say, well, the people who don't want it are the people with means. Yeah, so why don't you help the rest of the country get a job and get means and meaningful wage, upward mobility? But no, you want to be a freaking communist where you make everything equally shite. And this is the problem with communists. Time and time again, let's make everything equally shite. So, who's the next person who stood up at the whole communist gathering? Bela Act. And he basically went out and said, we need the Bela Act because it's stopping Afrikaners basically using their white privilege and their racism, because we see what Afrikaners are apparently doing is trying to preserve their, historical privileges by safeguarding the Afrikaans language. If they can safeguard the Afrikaans language according to him, then what that means is they can exclude people and then they can continue the oppression of apartheid. Yeah, that's complete garbage. Complete garbage. That's not what it's about at all. And apparently, we're going to create this bland, uniform culture in South Africa of I don't know what, because this guy don't know either. I'll tell you one thing it's not. If there's anything to do with any form of whiteness, yeah, you don't want it. And you say, what is whiteness? Well, actually, that's a really odd thing to describe. Well, it's capitalist. He don't want to be capitalist. Even though he wants to drive around in Gucci and Mercedes and whatever else, he still don't want to be capitalist. Because what that means is you might be richer than him, and he don't want that. He wants to be a political elite, where he's the master and you're the servant. Master servitude type relationship. That's what he wants. And then he basically says, we want to be able to, kick the living bejeebers out of everybody who violates our language policy. Which clearly all the Afrikaners are saying, yeah, but we don't want you to do away with our language. Our language is deeply tied to our culture. And they're like, but we wouldn't do that. Except we would. But no, trust us, guy, we won't. There's a lot of doublespeak going on here. And then again, he goes, well, if you notice the doublespeak, that's because you're racist. And you see what he's actually doing is he's attempting to be anti-racist by being racist to white people. And that's why he needs the Bela Act. I really wish I was joking. But this is basically the crux of the speech. He says we need to push forward the Bela Act. And then he also says that NHR needs to progress. Yeah, but you see, that's another problem. Again, when the communists are pushing the Bela Act and the NHI Act, you know that there's problems. It's all around centralization of power. And when they have centralization of power, you know that centralized power is going to be used for two reasons. Number one is to set an agenda that they want through licensing processes and procurement processing. We're already seeing it. That's why the Procurement Act was so problematic for South Africa. They use the act as a weapon. Then the next thing they can do is they can basically loot the living daylights out of the centralized fund because they got control over it. And then if you really want to actually be really conspiratorial, you could say, well, look at Zuma's party, MK. They don't even want there to be accountability. They don't want there to be a review process, any form of parliamentary review on the decisions taken when it gets through to these centralized commands. So basically they can loot it, they can do stupid stuff to it, and you can't review it, so you'll never know. Because, they don't want to repeat a state capture where they were found out. Yeah, not state capture where they captured the state. They mean the state capture investigations, because they don't want people to notice what they did. But this is the state of politicians. Hey, you just got to look at this and you just got to think yes, the SACP is just toxic as all hell. Any form of logical leader that was there in there is just gone. All we're left with is just people who treat us like we're stupid. We don't know what they're doing. We can see what they're doing a mile off. It doesn't take a genius to notice this. In any case, that's my view. It's only my opinion. And you can let me know what you think in the comment section below. You can let me know your opinion. I do read all your comments. So hook me up in the comment section. I might not reply to you, but I do read it. Until next time, bye.